Hear the world calling, but son, don't you listen. They're only trying to drag you back into prison. That's right.
Welcome back to What Have You. I'm Rachel Jankovic.
I'm Becca Merkel.
It's cold today.
Freezing
We're
cold.
outside of my house in the car.
I think we are safe from the clutches of the law today. Because
you never know if a neighbor might report us for
lurking. But we're in the driveway. It's okay.
Mm-hmm. We're gonna be all right. This time we shouldn't have the law enforcement upon us.
And we're gonna have to be swift and speedy because I'm between classes right now. I mean, it's lunch. I have a break and then a lunch but anyway, it's still tight. We're gonna be lean and mean.
But
and
guys,
efficient.
We're here to say hello and what have you. What have you been doing with your life lately?
Yeah.
Becca, what have you been doing?
Well,
I'll
tell
look
you.
Up
I've been spending way too much time in Minneapolis stuck in the airport.
That's right.
So, last time we all got together and spoke, I was on my way out, and then we were going to D.C., got stuck an extra night in Minneapolis on the way there, got stuck an extra night in Minneapolis on the way back, and it was real cold in Minneapolis. We were there for the minus 27 stretch, and the hotel couldn't even get hot water up to our room. It was cold, and then, the hotel was warm, but there was not hot water in the shower. Then in the breakfast buffet line, I go through and they had some, just assorted sundries, and I try to take some meat off the platter. Granted, it was going to be cold, it was, frozen to the platter. I couldn't chip it off.
Was it that cold in the hotel, or was it frozen meat?
It was
just not the right time.
I just felt like everything knew that it was too cold outside.
Yeah, it was we can't get on board with any of this.
I kind of wondered, you're why did the settlers stop here? It must have been summer, and they got snookered in. They put their crops in the ground, and then it was too late.
That's the thing I always wonder about. I just watched this today, I think, that video of how people built how Eskimos built a igloo with Moses, and you think, why did you stop there?
No,
why did you think, let's just do it like this?
I think you were running away from something worse,
so the best shot was to stop and just live in snow huts.
I'll hunker down here,
really
in the Arctic,
really tragic.
But I've been in Minneapolis in the rest of the year, and it's quite lovely weather. So
yeah, you have to dig out of that one now that you've said that.
Yeah, I didn't mean to insult everyone's homeland. Actually, if I was to look here right now, I'd be like, why did anyone stop here? It's real cold, guys.
No, you would not. It's beautiful, even though it's cold.
Beautiful.
If we were strictly looking on terms of heat, then yes, why stop here? But it's being beautiful.
And I suppose if you went somewhere where it was universally warm, then you have things like scorpions and mosquitoes with diseases.
There's a downside.
There's a downside to everything.
Becca's working it out about where to settle. What kind of climate?
If I was a pioneer.
Let's make some pros and cons.
Where would I have
Let's
gone?
do that. I have to say, though, one of my favorite things about here, and this is true all over the States, but I know it here the best. One of my favorite things is when you're driving in the country, and it's big,
sky.
Huge sky, long expanses of fields with no ends, and it's rolling hills mostly right around here, which is just beautiful, but it doesn't make it less empty when you're just bombing through. There's one highway that goes north in Idaho, and it's just tons and tons and tons of farmland, and that is where I always think of how brave those people were, who are right here. Let's stop. Let's see what we can get done here. And then the amazing thing to me is, and it's beautiful, is the places where there are these little marks on the land of where someone did make their life.
Yeah.
But that is
tragic.
To me, that is what Lewis talks about as being the northernness, the feeling that hits you when you're driving out in the nowheres, and all of a sudden there are trees and lilac bushes and wild roses and daffodils, the things that someone planted their life here. There's probably a family graveyard nearby. There is that, to me, is this Oh, it's so beautiful and sad and
To
wonderful.
me,
And
what it is that seems like it's always the sort of mark of that is there's an apple tree, like by
fruit
itself,
tree.
and daffodils, and it's like
yeah, sometimes you can kind of see where there was a foundation or there, and a lot of those are next to. A lot of them are on the same property that the family is still working, where there's new houses are built, and that's less
sad.
It's less sad, but when you just blow past one that's just kind of
out there,
it was, and you think whenever you see that, it's really the Psalms, the like we're just a mist.
Yeah,
you know, this is just happening so fast because
Or-
those aren't even very long ago.
No, but the other one that gets me, but this is a different kind of tragic, was there's a little farm town near here, and just outside of town there's this big, somewhat grand mansion, like for a little farm town. It's not a mansion, but it's like for that little town, it's a big, like trying to be a stately home. But it was never lived in because a man came out from the east.
Uniontown
Yeah, he
one?
came out from
Yeah.
the east, and he built this for his bride, and she came out and wouldn't live in it. And so,
Well, happy times.
and it just tells you that people have been stinkers for a long time.
Okay, somebody tagged me now. Oh wait, I'm gonna have to look this
But
up.
can you imagine, like, he came out and he built this house for you, and you're like, nah, I don't like it.
Oh well, what? I mean, goodness, talk about not being. I have to look this up. Who the author of Eat, Pray, Love is because
Because that seems on topic.
Biakuas. No, it is actually on topic. No, it's not the same author that I was thinking. Okay, so I just was wondering. I was like, wait, is this the author that I needed to know about? Somebody tagged me because people are thinking of me when they run into bad deeds on the internet. And somebody tagged me in a life coaching, some kind of a goal cast or something. And it was a woman telling her sad story.
Okay.
And her sad story amounted to she did not marry for love, but she ended up married to a wonderful man who living in Italy by Lake Como in a beautiful life with a beautiful Vespa and everything, except the one problem was she wasn't happy. And
Why did she not marry for love?
we're not sure.
Money?
We're not sure.
She
He was
married-
he was a great man. She might have married for money.
Lake Como.
She
is
might
what
have married
did.
for the life. She doesn't go into that. She doesn't dabble in that. What she tells about
Like-
is how the internal pressure built up to such a point that she was grabbing onto a wall in the hospital where they were going to visit a friend and realizing like she could jump out of the window or she could just leave her life and leave the marriage. And so that was how she chose her own happiness. And after 9 years of marriage, she took the plunge of saying, I'm not happy, I'm leaving you. And just did that. Like, and then,
And everyone's
and now,
supposed to see that as
and now
heroism.
she's giving emotional renditions of this great act of valiance, you know, while violins are playing in the background. And she's saying that this beautiful painting that she had crafted of her life was like cracking, and they have these graphics of like as the painting is cracking, this like rays of sun are coming through. Like she was able to burst out of the confines of
her promises.
of her commitments. Yeah,
Her vows.
I was able to break free of the things I said I would do. And when I broke free of those, I found that I was amazing, and my happiness was the most important thing. But the thing that I thought was funny, I did not take very long looking at this, but as I scrolled briefly in the commentaries of how people were receiving this fine work, I think too many people know someone who's had that selfish person in their life to think it's funny.
Okay.
Because it seemed to be that this great...
There's a little bit of realism
It
coming
seemed
in.
like a lot of people were like, I'm sorry, poor guy that married you and gave you 9 years of his life to have you suddenly burst out and decide never mind for no actual reasons but your emotions. You know, like just you didn't feel like it was making you your happiest.
No, your emotions are tedious taskmasters.
But the worst problem is you can't leave them behind. So wherever you go, when your emotions were when they were the unkind, harsh master in your life. You break out of your life, but your emotions are still being your master. They're coming
ride
with
the train
you.
with you, yeah.
Yeah. And this is, yes. So I don't know why this reminded me of an illustration we've used with our kids when people want to keep going back to like feeling guilty or having, or they want to keep some emotional entanglement of some kind. Where it's like, if you've been forgiven, because they go to a classical school, they know about the people who did the work on the triremes, the people who were below deck, shackled, rowing, miserable, murderous life where people are dying there all the time. And it's like, Jesus came and he got you out of there. And nothing is more unattractive than running back on board and getting down below and buckling on your shackles again. This is the part.
Especially not when you go down there and then say, what a sad time I'm having.
Poor me. Have you noticed how I got locked up again? It might have been me that did it. It might be that I'm just even posing with the shackles on myself.
This brings us back to that excellent video of Moses that you have of him going back behind the sofa and sticking his head in a crack.
I stuck. And yes, it was like, no, you're not. You certainly are not stuck. This is not my fault. This is someone else's fault. Anyways, it was funny to me because you think the problem is so many people are unhappy, and they're unhappy because they don't know God. And then when you tell everyone that the solution to your unhappiness problem is to just hurt more people and make them unhappy.
Well, the thing that's ironic is for whatever reason, she married the Lake Como, not for love, but for... I don't know what would make you do that in these modern days aside from pure selfish ambition.
But it was, yes,
but
and
whatever.
She kept coming back to about how afraid she was to tell her dad, but never mentioned that it would be hard to tell her husband.
But what I mean is so let's just make up a backstory here that she was doing it because it looked like an amazing life.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so she thought that circumstances would bring her happiness. Right. Then she discovered that circumstances did not bring her happiness, so she quickly tried to change the circumstances so they would
get the happiness. And there's a temporary relief because there's a temporary surge of emotions of some kind.
But it's like, how if you ever I don't know, if you rub your eyes and you get those sparkles that, for a minute.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Whenever you try and look directly at them, it moves. You can't look directly at it. I feel like that's people's chasing their happiness is every time they pivot and go for it vanishes. It moves. And they keep thinking, well, if I just dash left, it will,
if I could just change my circumstance this much, I would feel better. I'd be happy. And then it was really illustrative of how trying to serve your own happiness is the most unhappy position of all, to be just trying to constantly feed something that is so difficult to satisfy.
Well, impossible to satisfy.
Yeah, but and actually we were already talking about Lewis and his feelings of northernness, but how he describes that, I think it's in Surprised by Joy, isn't it? He talks about his feeling of northernness for him is that it was like some overpowering feeling of, how would you describe it? Like longing or beauty that is just so big that you can't get a handle on it. Like it overwhelms you with this moment of something. Anyways, that's how
longing.
He describes it as northernness because for him that was where he always got that feeling, was in this kind of northern...
Balder the Beautiful is dead.
Yeah, and he's really moved by that. And I can remember, I think the first time I ever really, really felt that way, like an overwhelming joy. It was not the first time. It was the first time after having read Lewis that I thought connected it with this, where I walked outside and it was the fall. So when we lived on Harrison Street, and there was a yellow maple, really yellow, with the sun all pouring through it in a way that was the beauty of this moment is so far out of our grasp, but we yearn for it so much in some way, it just overwhelms you. And now, for an abrupt turn in the conversation, I'll tell you where I'm going. This just prompted by northernness, that feeling, that overwhelming joy, it does happen throughout your life, but it never happens when you're focused on getting it, which is what
No.
Lewis points out.
Yep.
That if you start pursuing that feeling, it does not happen. And this is where I'm going to abruptly apply this to your birth plan.
Wow.
Which is,
Okay.
didn't see that coming.
No.
But this is a place that I see it coming up all the time, because your birth, like having a baby, that is a moment of overwhelming beauty, longing, glory, this moment that is just so
Transcendent.
sweet. Yeah, like it is a moment of a different kind of high point than you otherwise will ever experience.
Sure.
And in that moment, if you are trying to have a birth so that you can have that moment, you will never, ever, never get it. But if you are trying to just glorify God and protect this baby and bring a baby into the world, the joy is totally overwhelming and beautiful. Even I have 7 children, and I've had quite a diversity of birth experiences. You know, some births that were not great, some that were magnificently, like, if we could all just book that birth again, this would be great. And some in a C-section, and in all of them, there is that joy when you're not pursuing your own joy.
Yeah.
Like when you're not there for your own feelings, there is an overwhelming joy and beauty in that moment, even when something didn't go perfectly well.
Well, I think that it has so many more applications than just, because that's in a sort of life-changing event. But I think this happens down to the smallest, most mundane things you do all day, even if it's just what you decide to cook for dinner. If you're trying to capture the joy, it will escape you somehow. Like if you cook a great dinner for your people because you know they love it and you know they'll be happy, then it will be great. If you cook the dinner for them so that they will all be so impressed with your generosity and they will all rise and call you blessed in the city gates, that might not happen. And your basically your goal setting,
you don't put your obedience in like a coin in the joy vending machine.
But it's sort of like, what are you in this for exactly? And if you're in it for the reward solely, it often doesn't pan out.
Even sometimes you might make it because you think everyone will enjoy it, and it might be a weird night where people don't enjoy it for some reason. The cheerful spirit has evaporated from the children. I'm just saying, even if you're doing it for a good reason, you might not get the result that you anticipated. But if you're doing it for the right reason, you just keep on faithfully doing it, because you also get wild results when you never saw that coming.
But I just think it's the kind of over-scripting things, trying to write the plot. Usually you will find yourself not living up to your own expectations.
Yeah.
You know?
But I think that an understanding that when there are those moments of just overwhelming joy and delight and beauty, and longing for, I always think of it as being like what the Psalms talk about. It is the Psalms, isn't it? That we have eternity in our hearts. That longing that we really were made for another world. And those moments are moments when we catch some glimmer of what that other world will be. You know, and we have an overwhelming longing because it's where we belong. That's what we were made for, that kind of glory and beauty and all of this.
Right.
But I think that we have that longing, we have all of this, but we don't get to stop and try to dictate when we're going to feel that or how it's going to happen, because it's just a pit of despair.
It also is, I think, entirely unpredictable when it's going to hit you. And you know what I mean?
You have it when you have friends who are like, I just had this moment where I was just looking at our dog and I was just like, I cannot get into that moment with you. I do not understand. But they're like, but you see how I thought, and actually I should totally tell this one. I can get into the moment. I already told you this, but I didn't tell the podcasters.
What?
And
I'm looking at your phone, but not because I'm trying to look at your text.
It was my friend Gentry called me to tell me this, and I loved her observation where she was saying, you know, that terrible tragedy in Spain with the 2-year-old that fell down the well.
Well, you told me about it, yeah.
Yes. So the 2-year-old that was down the well, and the parents just so, so awful and so
Yeah.
sad. And knowing that your baby is down there and you can't, there's like nothing to do. And I think that I don't know, I didn't read much about the news story, but I think that they could like hear the baby down there, but they couldn't get to them. And just a really, really sad time. And in that time, what struck her as she was like driving to Walmart thinking about it, I love this, was how much in all of your sympathy and sorrow and heartache for those parents, you would not ever say, take my child instead. Put my child down that well instead of your child.
No.
And how when God took all of our sin and shame and grief and said, put it on my son, that it was magnified, because it's not like Jesus just took one hardship.
Right.
It's all of the grief and shame of every individual situation all together at one time.
Right.
And God really did say, take my son. This is my son, who I love, in whom I'm well pleased. Take him and put all this on him. And it is so beautiful, because we don't even have kind of the category to think of it. But it's not. But you can get a glimmer, because you know how horrible it would be to have your child there.
Right.
Anyways, all of that to say, really quite roundabout. Should I pull up the questions that we were supposed to talk about today?
Sure.
I did a good job. I'm really pleased with myself for recording the questions into a note.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, because otherwise they just get lost. We know we had I was pretty sure. Okay, this one is, I'm thinking about humility a lot lately. Stop thinking about yourself so much, etc. And I can't quite get the better of one particular aspect of this death to self, serving others, saying to clean up after my kids or to not clean. I am responsible to teach them to think of someone other than themselves, so that trail of clothes from the back door to your bedroom is right out, or is it? I'm wearied by the reminding and reprimanding and maybe some yelling and probably a little crying. Will they learn humble service by seeing me pick up after them, or will they not even notice? Would it be better for my soul to stop the frustration and weariness and just serve them, or would it be better to learn how to get a grip and teach them without losing it? If so, how?
Yeah.
I think that last one was it, which is get a grip and learn how to teach them, but without anger,
undue emotion. And if so, how? Yes, that is indeed the question. That's it's the money question.
I think the question is,
Can I borrow some of your menthol?
Yeah, you can. I think the first step of it is that recognizing that yes, all of your frustration or anger or snippiness or selfishness is out. But it's not either that or just doing it all yourself.
It's like the square of opposition here.
Right, exactly. There are other options here than that.
Yeah. So it often can seem like, well, I could be kind and gracious and do all the work, and then my kids will grow up to be selfish little pigs. Or I could lose it at them and force them to do it, in which case they'll be humble, but then I've been that mother.
Yeah.
But ideally, you don't have to choose between those. But that is the question, is how do you do it? And I would just say it's a lot of prayer and a lot of repenting when you fall down, and a lot of praying for grace before you face it, and a lot of trying to be creative and think of new ways to attack the same problem. And
we change it up a lot. Like I don't know if this is just us, but there is no one approach to cleaning or jobs that would work for us in the sense that we really do want to be teaching our kids how to be as humans, how to be people who see problems and get involved in fixing it. And we don't, in my opinion, I don't know how you could teach all of that with just one set routine of everyone's chores. But I may just not be the human who can mastermind that. But what we end up doing...
Like life changes so fast.
Yeah, that's true.
Every time you feel like you've got it nailed, something else comes along.
Back when our kids were littler and we had a playroom downstairs, I would send them all, the ones that were old enough to, down there and say, I want you to look at the room, look around, what's the most important things that need to be done? Like, what are the big messes? And then you come back up here and you tell me what you're going to take responsibility for. And so they would come tell me, and I'd say, great, that means you're on the Legos. That means all the Legos is your problem. You know, someone else has said it's the doll clothes and the dress ups. I'm like, great, then you handle that, you know. And so, but the reason we did that is I wanted them to be people who could look at the whole picture of what are we trying to accomplish here. And actually think in strategy and teamwork kinds of ways. Like, what will make the biggest difference?
Yeah, and I think being a mom who stays cheerful through it is probably the single most effective thing you can do to teach it.
Right.
Because you just muddy the water when you get tweaked at everybody.
I think it's because sometime I wrote on this. I think I know why this is, though. Is that when you are joyful, people look at the object of your joy. Like, when they don't look just at your joy, they look at the object of it, and that is what they're looking at. When you are angry, people don't look at the object of your anger. They watch you be angry. And they look at you. And so the difference with your children, when you are joyful, they look with you at what does she see that's joyful here. So when you're joyful about how are we going to clean this up, how are we going to love on each other. So this is things I might do with my kids. Daddy's going to be home in a few minutes. Let's try to get this together and make it look nice before he gets here. Kind of like there's a little goal, and we're all trying to look together at the idea of having a nice moment as a family. Like, let's do this together. Then the difference when I get super peevy about why are all the backpacks and the shoes, and who brought in gravel and put it on the doormat, and why did you do this to me? Does no one care about me at all? Like, when your temptation is that, not a solid person looks at the mess and thinks this is reasonable. They look at you and they think she's not safe.
What happens is they look at you the way you're looking at the gravel.
Yeah, they're like, woo.
What they're doing is
who did that?
They stop looking at the mess in the entryway and they start looking at the mess that is their mother. And I think that's exactly right. That's what I mean by I think
we do not communicate we don't communicate what we're trying to communicate when we get angry. We communicate that mom can't be trusted, that she's an angry bear, that she's not.
But we often feel like, especially, only when we're in the grip of it, I think. We feel like by displaying our angry face at everyone,
we're going to make them take it seriously.
They will see how serious this is.
They will finally understand at last how unbearable they are.
Like, my angry face is my most effective tool that I pull out of my tool belt, and then I wield it
and
at
boy,
everyone.
when I do that, don't we get great results? Just great ones.
Right. And the thing is like, you have completely distracted everybody away from what you're trying to make them notice.
What you're trying to emphasize.
Yeah.
You're like, look, underlining this basic kindness to others that you're failing to accomplish. And what they're looking at is you spittle-flecked and gripping your Sharpie and being like, ah! And it's not effective. So,
no, but you don't want to raise a bunch of entitled kids who don't know how to pick up.
No.
And that has been done more than once.
Weirdly, something that currently seems to be the MO of a lot of young people.
Yeah.
Not contributors.
Yes. That is the thing everyone bewails about millennials and stuff is, and you really don't want to raise that kind of kid. So I think if you just run around behind your children and around the front of them and sort of paving their way and making everything cushy and smooth for them and they never have to pick up anything, you are doing them a very deep disservice. Like, I think teaching your children how to take responsibility, work hard, pick up, that's really important. But more than anything, it's teaching them to be able to do that and be cheerful, which means you have to show them how.
Do it. Yeah, because so we don't do chore charts and things, although I'm not opposed to people doing that. We just don't do that. What we do is we have a high standard of, if your mother tells you to do something, you're going to do it cheerfully and right away and no complaining. And, so when we all chip in, we make everyone, it's the standard is you'll be cheerful and you'll do the work. Not, you'll just tick these boxes exactly right. But, no, you know how to jump in and do stuff. One trick I've had before, one of my master level mothering tips, pretty sure I've probably shared this before, is I would say we set the timer for we're going to do 30 minutes of cleanup and everyone's going to work and you're going to just clean and see what needs to be done. And help. And then we made a platter of disgusting snacks.
Oh,
and
yeah, you have
this
talked
was
about
the
this.
one where if I catch you not working, or if I catch you being grumpy, or if I catch you doing something like dancing with the broom instead of sweeping, alternate tasks, that you had to eat. I feel like the worst one we did was like, somehow there were marshmallows and pepperoncinis, and the kids all helped me craft the worst snacks of all. We had like a Cheez-It with a bunch of stone ground mustard, which only scares my children. Stone ground mustard and Cheez-Its and something grotesque on top of that. I don't know what it was. Maraschino cherry or something.
Right.
We just the grossest. And so he said that's the consequence of being found not chipping in, is that we would all gather around and watch you have to eat a disgusting snack. But the reality is, everybody did a great job, everybody worked hard, and everybody thought it was hilarious and was enjoying each other and having a fun time.
Right. Which is good. Can I just pivot really fast, though, and bring up something else that I think needs to be spoken of?
Do it.
Might be rude. Well, might be too rude.
Has that ever held us back?
Well, no. Now that you say
Spell it for me. Give me some sign language.
This is a thing that I feel like I see in the world, and my girls see it in the world, just because it's kind of more their generation. In fact, I'm kind of stealing one of my daughter's paper topics, because this is why we were talking about it. The girl crushes.
That's not rude. That's inappropriate.
Well, but it's, obviously everyone knows it's inappropriate if it was to be true, but using that sort of lingo, you know what I mean? And gushing about each other in that way. And so the kind of friends that are just, it's a friendship that we never allowed with our kids. And I think that we had reasons for it, right? But I think that there's a lot of sloppiness in friendship. And I know we talked about friendship a few weeks ago, about not feeling like you have to have that one bosom buddy or whatever necessarily. And if you do, great.
Right.
But there's the kind of super gushy, snuggly, baby talky, pet each other's hair thing that happens when you're in like your early teens, but then it kind of keeps on. And the kind of girls that are always telling each other how hot they are on their
We've talked about that
Instagram posts. Have we?
We talked about that a long time ago, about not telling all your sisters that you're super sexy or smoking hot or like, ooh.
Yeah, or saying I have a
on
crush on you. Or,
why,
or
guys?
talking about
Why?
we're such a cute couple, the two of us. It's just
Wrong-o.
weird. And I think just really unhealthy. Like, it's just it's allowing yourself to go.
I think it's I've been on my social media crusades of the Department of Hell No. But the thing about this kind of thing is that it's not meaningless. And when Christians start dabbling in that would be a foolish relationship for you to have with a man.
An exceptionally foolish
Right,
one.
so what I'm saying, so say it was a potentially appropriate sexual relationship. It's an inappropriate way to go about it. Like, say you're a single woman and this is a guy that you're interested in, posting all the time about how hot he is and how, like, it's not biblical standards for anything. Like, we're such a cute couple that one is less egregious from the others. But my point is still, you want to be really aware that you're behaving like a biblical Christian and not just someone who picked up all your mannerisms from dumb Instagram accounts. Like, are you actively, practically trying to apply the Word of God in how you go about your life? Or are you just picking up terminology from someone who you thought had cute shoes? And that was it. That was your standard. Your standard was, I like her style, and she said someone else, rawr. And
so
you're
I do that.
So I do that too. I like to growl at passing other girls on Instagram.
Yeah, and I think that, like, let's just say that we happen to live in the society that our great-grandmothers lived in, where they probably didn't even know that lesbianism existed in the world until they were married with 3 children when they found out about it.
If they did.
If they ever did.
Yeah.
So let's say that we lived in that world. Well, there are certain things that wouldn't be automatically assumed. But we live in, like, this is the front burner topic for everyone.
Can we pause it for a second? Can you pause it?
I'm just going to let everyone know that it will probably
Hey,
cut
Phil.
off. So anyway, I think if we lived in that society, then you wouldn't leap to conclusions necessarily, but because homosexuality is something that's being pushed so hard as an agenda, that there's just a certain level of foolishness if you insist on walking around holding hands with your friend.
Partly because, have you actually checked? Because I'm going to say, no, you haven't. Like, you probably certainly have not first cleared your friend. Like, you don't have any same-sex attraction problems, do you?
Right.
Because before, I need you to sign on this dotted line that this won't be a temptation for you or potentially incur any problems.
Right.
It's like, you did not have that conversation. What
No.
you're doing is acting like your own sexual behavior is trite and a joke and nothing else.
Yeah.
And it's funny.
And I think sometimes girls do this, and I'm talking about Christian girls, basically. You know,
Right.
like the kind of girls who are, we're just going to assume that they're innocent. I think a lot of the time it's done as a way of getting the guy's attention too. Like it's a weird, weird flirt play. And I just think, like,
I think it's kind of putting yourself out there as a sexual commodity. Like I am on everyone's radar about what turns me on, or it's just weird.
Or just being like, I feel like you see girls do this where they're way too physically affectionate with each other in front of the guys in a weird way. Like,
yeah.
And I just think as mothers, just really don't let your girls start down that path of just too physical, too gushy, too sweetsy romantic talk with other girls. I just feel like the whole thing is just
rife. It is rife with opportunities for dumb sin. And partly because there's a feedback loop. There's a reason people are doing it. You say it to other people, and then they say it to you. You know, like you tell people that they're incredibly hot, and then they'll tell you that you're hot. And then that way, whenever you're having a down day, you have some people that you can quickly tap to tell you how hot you are. There's some kind of a reason for it. And what it is, if you look at it straight on, is not one that you want to get involved with. It's like, why would you want to get
and I feel
on
like best case scenario, it's just like really socially inappropriate behavior. It's like chewing with your mouth open, or like not teaching your girls how to not talk with food in their mouth or something. It's just sort of like, let's just be a little more together, shall we? Like there's that piece.
Hold some of your cards a little closer. Like, if there's another girl that you really love her sense of style, you can tell her that in a completely appropriate way. We're not saying don't give a compliment.
No, it's not about that.
We're saying don't growl at her. Say, I really love the way you put your outfits together. That's really pretty.
I know.
That's not weird. You can say that to people without having it be any... But when you start being like, hot mama, woo, doggy, and fanning yourself.
And whistling.
Hello. No. Like, back out of this. And plus, it's so stupid because it's imitating the worst kind of male behavior.
Well, and the kind of male behavior that everyone is hashtagging these days.
That Gillette's going so far as to make ads trying to prevent it. Why are we trying to do this? Like, what possible reason could we have for this lingo and this way of talking?
It's really horrid.
And the problem is, that's just not. It's not a good setup among the young girls. It is not a good setup for thinking that that's the way that your life is supposed to be, because girls are altogether more constantly supportive of one another's feelings than any godly man is going to be in the future. You know, like if you think that what a relationship is supposed to be like is you waking up to your husband just explaining to you how beautiful you are first thing in the morning all the time, it's not going to happen. Like, you have
I don't know what kind of marriage you
Yeah,
have.
apparently I just announced that that's not the way it works in my marriage. Praise the Lord that there's other things, there's other work to be done. That's not just all being impressed with me. This is a really funny thing to add on here, but I just noticed this because I've been so deep in the annals of self-love and self-care lately, and feeling like really you can't walk a step without having it slap you in the face.
Omnipresent.
And I just found out, I know for all listeners, it doesn't mean this, but I still think it's very funny that it was just the Chinese New Year. And you know how like 2019 was the year of self-care, but now it's the Chinese New Year, which turns it into the year of the pig.
Yeah.
Well, I think that there must be something in that. Like, I was like, ooh, the year of the pig.
Swinish
We're
behavior.
on it now. Everyone's going to be a pig this year. So, but what I was going to say is because I've been out there in the self-care times building file folders of horrible memes. I'm not looking for them. My friendly followers are plundering their own Facebook, friends of theirs that share it, etc., etc. But one of the things that has just really struck me, everyone brace yourselves because I know you're going to get mad at me, but something that started coming up a lot are these videos of ladies trying to show us how to do our hair if we haven't showered in like 4 weeks. Like, what is going on here? And I find it very funny because it's like this passion for dry shampoo.
Yes.
I just like to say, I have no problem with a dry shampoo in the world. But when it is like how to make yourself look amazing even when you're actually just being dirty and lazy, what is that?
Well, it's also sort of like...
It's kind of a cultural phenomenon.
If this was the year of self-care, I think you'd be
Could you just shower,
slightly
though?
more groomed.
Like, I don't understand how someone... So I happened upon one that was like a 35-minute video of someone who was going to show us how to style your hair super fast, but it was still like 20 minutes of hairstyling probably. And then after that, unpack her box of beauty supplies that she got from whatever thing she was on.
Okay.
But if you have 25 minutes to just style your hair, I think you should wash it. That's how I felt.
Maybe
try washing.
Like the tutorial, though. Maybe.
Try taking a shower.
I know. Well, there's that. But
in
here's the thing.
In this instance,
I have to
she
sympathize, though, because I know that when I had a house full of toddlers running amok, there are definitely times when you're like, a shower will end up with the house burning down around me.
But
and I cannot. Now, I just think that, like, okay, if there are extenuating circumstances, and there might be moms who just are in the trenches and they want to still be able to look cute, but haven't been able to.
But this is not that, because this is someone with a full manicure, tons of makeup, explaining to us how to quickly style our hair. Like a 20-minute hairstyle was the fast one with a ton of dry shampoo because you haven't washed your hair in at least a week. Like 7 to 8 days.
Maybe it's because they're blowout aficionados.
Probably. I probably know nothing about this world, except for I would just like to say that I found it funny. The funny parallel between you don't need to apologize for anything. You're amazing the way that you are. And also, we've decided to quit washing our hair as a bunch of women. Why, though? Why are we giving that up? I thought it was kind of one of the luxuries of our life.
It's true. Okay, we have to do tips because I have to go back and teach a class. So,
okay.
What do you got?
My tip?
Yeah. Give us a good idea.
Pressure's on.
Yeah.
My tip is
shower. Wash your
first.
hair.
Wash your hair. I'm a big fan. I'm an advocate of hair washing. Well,
I'm going to go home and
hold these two things together because I'm not offended by dry shampoo, and I'm not offended by people who like to wash their hair not every day.
Well, here's the thing. Last week when I talked about the petty demon that was afflicting us, I think I forgot to loop in the other piece, which was one of the elements in our hot water heater burnout.
Oh.
So that it was like you can have hot water for like a split second and then it's gone with the wind. So I've been basically terrified of the shower for the last week, but it's fixed now. And so it's my life
My tip
be
that
better.
I'm planning to do, since we're building a house right now, and I'm hoping, we'll see if we can, I'm wanting to get a valve thing added in the plumbing so that the kids shower so that it turns off the hot water after like 12 minutes.
That's so mean, Rachel.
It's not mean. It's very loving. What
mean.
if you don't have enough hot water for everyone to shower? It's a nice way to keep people hopping out of the shower.
I think it's mean.
In a big family, children can take a shower for 7 hours. If you didn't notice.
I think that can be the case even in not a big family.
Yeah, but in a big family, you might not notice until like hour 3 when you're like, wait, where have you been? And it happens because in a big family, people it's their big chance at privacy. They get in there and the door's locked and no one's going to come in. So they're like, heck, I'm going to stay in here all day. This is magical. And in a big house, I feel like I really will not have any idea how long someone's been in the shower. So I think it's wise.
That is so funny.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
You could also just put a timer in there. Say when the timer buzzes, you have to come out.
Yeah, but the timer would go and they'd be like, well, I can't get out now because my hair is sudsy, so I better not yet. And then they forget and they start writing their novel while they're in there. This is my part
The question is, are you going to have your own hot water set for 12 minutes also? Or is it just in the kids' bathrooms?
Why would I be that way?
Okay, all right,
No.
just checking.
So the funny thing is, when my kids were little, this is the same principle. When the twins were babies and I had 2 toddlers and I was nursing the twins and life was horrible chaos and no, not horrible, funny chaos. Mm-hmm. One of the things I did that was very smart of me, just came upon me, put a baby gate in our bedroom door.
Yeah.
And in the morning, I would make sure our bedroom was clean. Like I would make our bed, tidy up our room. Mm-hmm. Our bedroom was a nice place to be.
Yeah.
And then when I had to change the babies or I did this with Blair also. So when there were 4 toddlers and then 1 baby, I would nurse them in our room well, not always, but sometimes and change them in there. Because by having the baby gate, the other kids would come to the gate and stand there and be like, she's so cute. No. And I could talk to them without having that problem where you're nursing the baby and the other kids are all climbing on you. And you feel like the only thing you're saying, they're being very loving. Mm-hmm. And all you're doing is being like, get off of me, get down, back up, don't touch her. Why are you doing this? Like the baby's falling asleep. And you're like, get away from me, you children. And I found by putting the baby gate there that it really sweetened our conversation because I was not always telling them to stop. We could just talk about how cute the baby was with there was a good boundary there. And that's how I feel like why it would be good. Instead of me pounding on doors and trying to get people to take it as urgent, you need to get out. I think it would be very funny to just have the hot water turn off.
That's a good idea.
As a known thing.
I'm just like, but could you just turn it off and then turn it back on? If you were determined to take a long shower, you could.
Well, I don't actually know how this valve system works, so
it's true.
I can't
well,
tell you.
I actually have to go. I have to go
all
teach
right.
a class. Everyone,
good luck to you all.
It's been real.
All right,
we'll
goodbye.
See you next week.
You think of yourself now, and then in 4 years' time, what do you want yourself to look like? And is the education that you're considering going to help you get to that place?
When you're a student, you want to become like your teacher. You're going to become like your teacher. Looking at NSA beforehand, I knew I wanted to become like the men who are teaching here.
Fireman, husband, father, doctor, no matter where you want to go, NSA is just such good preparation for the person that you want to be.
If you want to be an effective Christian, you need to be able to lead and shape culture. If you want to do that, no matter what your occupation is, you need to shape yourself, prepare yourself as a person for that job. And liberal arts is, I think, the best education you can have for that.
To learn more, check us out online at nsa.edu.